Thank you all for being here. And yeah, and we could just sit for a moment just quietly and see if there's anything on your mind, anything on your heart that you want to ask or share. Just get in touch with what's here. Don't be shy. This is the place to ask questions.
Hey, Lena.
Hey, Mark. Nice to hear you.
There's been a lot of well, there's always quite a lot of new learning here, which is great. This just keeps evolving and more structures, more possibilities for healing. But I've been going back to the spiritual side, I guess, for lack of a better word, what you're talking about, the more natural rest. And I'm listening to an older series by Adyashanti called Falling into Grace that I really like. I mean, because I went through the series listening to it. It's about an hour for each session, and they're just really, really terrific, each one. But coming back to it, it's, because I'm not the same person, whenever I listened to it before. And I'm just saying it's really highly recommended for the awakening process. And
yeah, just
wanted to mention that it's Falling into Grace, Adyashanti. And it might be on YouTube. I don't know. I just bought the CD set way back when.
Beautiful. Yeah, he's amazing. It really helped me so much, so much. It's just this beauty and eloquency and intelligence behind an awakened spirit. So it's just kind of really lovely to hear his insights and just poetry about waking up.
Yeah. It's like you can always trust him. It's so good.
Yeah. It got you. Wonderful. That's great. However, we can support ourselves, right? So I remember listening to tons and tons of Adyashanti's retreats and sessions and I don't know, talks, and I had some videos even. But it's like the beauty of that for me and the way I used it. So instead of being used by it, meaning instead of it taking over and us riding the wave of seeking unconsciously, which meaning what does it look like? It looks like binging on satsangs without necessarily seeing any results, right? And how else we can use that, and what was really, really helpful here is just the fact that it was much less of all of the information that we have right now. So there was much more of like intuition and building trust around, okay, there's this one teacher and I resonate with him. So it was more even almost going, not necessarily like, well, it's still considered dimension one, but it says, no prompting questions, it's dimension one, but it would be probably, I would still say in dimension one, we can totally prompt, we can totally ask life to lead us by the hand, so to say, to wake up. And what it really means, there's no really two, but there's still that play that is happening. So how I was using that energy that you're talking about, Mark, like you felt drawn to listen to that particular talk, right? And there's great resonance with that. And it's wonderful. As well as for me, it was like, well, okay, there's like a spiritual question, there's spiritual urge to know something. Whether it's like, okay, how do I stay what I am? How does love move? What does truth looks like in everyday life? Whatever it is, maybe about intimacy, how do I stay open? Whatever it is that your question is, we all have that question. It always changes. but it always, we have like periods of working for some time on one particular inner urge or inner move, inner calling, and use that. So whatever it is, before you pick, from thousands of information, even through Adyashanti, he has this, I think, Sangha, it's like a radio show online that you can go and look through all the audios and all the videos that you can purchase. And there's a lot of free ones. And well, in my scarcity world before, I actually went through all the free ones and I would just download them all. And then when I had a question, and in my hippie days, so when I had a question, like I would just sit with it and I would just pick one of the titles that felt it would be resonating the most with what I need to hear, just period. And he always spoke to what I needed to hear, exactly what I needed to hear. So it's not just hearing, it's not just an information that I wanted to listen to. It's what I wanted to fully feel into within myself, recognize. It's this recognition. He points to something that is already recognized within him. So it's this same recognition that could be tapped into by listening to these talks. So they're a beautiful, wonderful portal. And especially if we have a live question that we, really passionately, life itself, right? You are life itself. So life itself wants to really it moves towards, it has no choice but to move towards a certain next stage of realization, of evolution, of deepening. So it brings itself up as these teachers, right? So don't keep it dead. Don't keep it just like, oh, let me listen to another satsang. Maybe I learn another trick how to stay present. Not like that. Make it alive within you. Feel the resonance of what they're pointing to. Make it an alive inquiry before you hit that click to play. What is it for you? What are you looking for? Live with that question, and then for sure would be answered. There's no way that life won't answer you. Like, we are doing inquiry here. There's no way that we don't get an answer to our questions. Yeah. So just kind of wanted to drop it. So it's, keep it alive. It's cool. It's cool you have that. Like, I'm not saying like kill your seeking energy, because a lot of non-dual teachers will say like there's nothing to look for. But I say, yeah, use it as an engine, as a fire rocket that can bring you exactly where you want to be, back again to square one, square zero anyway. But you have to make the turn. You have to go around looking. Yes, Annie. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I just want to say hello. I'm not looking for any advice or even asking any questions. I want to say it's my first time here sitting with you, and I just love community. My face, it doesn't matter. So I'm just here with my hand over my heart, breathing, and in an embodied way, like I think it's like the words that are like little kid energy, like we're all here together. Like, oh, this is so cool.
Awesome. I love it. Oh, nice to meet you, Annie.
Thank you. That's it. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Welcome to the club. Beautiful. So, so anyone else has any clarity about anything he'd like to clear up?
Hey, Lena.
Oh, hi, Gary. I was not sure
Hey.
what Gary it is. Nice to see
It's
you.
me. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, if you like have any information about how like Kundalini and chakras like coincide with KI, because like I read some stuff about like certain theories about it, and that they're just like dense, they're like just like knots in the body that are associated with like a sense of self, and they're like just different sort of emotional stores or energetic,
Mhm.
And then obviously it can just like be undoing on its own. Like this energy, whatever happens, just starts dissolving it. But then, like, do you think you need to inquire into like these
Mhm.
knots, or
Okay.
I don't know, because I'm a bit like
Yeah.
I've got like a lot in my stomach at the moment, and I'm wondering, like, do I just allow, I don't know, should I just try and get out of the way, or try and do like just like what Scott calls like door one, where it's just like
Yeah. I want to
just
change.
not, yeah, just like, I don't know, like there's like different things like like commands like disconnect,
Mhm.
which is like making a like distance between my attention and the thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was just wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure, Gary. Well, thank you, for asking and sharing. So I can only speak again from direct experience, and it's so in my case, there was a need for both, like getting out of the way. So the experience here, just starting meditating, I encountered actually a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, kind of a remembrance of something. Well, remembrance of just being the void kind of triggered that experience within me. So it took about 3 years for that energy to rise up and out, and then it eventually comes back down and in. The embodiment journey starts. But so what happened on the way up, it took, as I'm saying, 3 years. It was doing its own thing, and I've learned to really be in the body and really allow it to do whatever it does. And in that sense, I was just in a seeking path journey to like, I just want to know who I am. Well, actually, I just want to unite and merge with source. For me, that was my kind of drive. So, but I was fascinated with that energy. So it was actually moving through, and it was doing a lot of these crazy things in the body energetically. It was like moving things out. And there was actually deeper and denser places that it couldn't pass for months. And as I'm saying, 3 years it took. Like the heart area took for it forever. And I had like intense physical pain for like 4 months in that area. And if I didn't know what was happening to me, like I would definitely be diagnosed with something pretty bad. I don't know, something that doctors don't know what it is, but they would somehow give it a name. So, and it was interesting going through the throat, it had a very huge difficulty here too, but eventually it did with the practices that I was still supporting it, meaning I was just doing a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, just basically asanas, so moving the body, breathing. So these kind of practices allowed it, and just my constant urge and drive to know the truth and nothing but truth drove it eventually up and out in Ramana's ashram, basically. But now coming in, that was a different story. On the way out, it didn't need to look at all these things. It pushed through, it did its own thing, dissolving some of these things. But on the way back in, I had to look through everything. And what mostly it found, it was the throat area is the self-expression and the loads and loads of repressed shame that was stored there that I could only address with KI. And back in the day, there was no repression tool, so it was KI. And in the area of the heart as well, the first glimpse of separation and rejection of my mom and stuff like that around intimacy and relationships and fear, a lot of fear of my mom had to like, there's like this intense kind of like a pole that was here that had to be addressed. Now on the way down, it's not like you feeling the energy anymore. It's not the same when it's going up. So I'm just saying, as I'm saying, that for sure it's different for everyone. Like you being in this work and you having it actually doing it's probably cleanse on its way up. So probably having both could have been much more maybe faster to let it move through. But then and again, back in, it's like, how do you know that the energy comes back in? It's just, there is kind of a gradual working. For me was on the throat and then on the heart. And then now there's this, I was just talking with Toshi, like this last grasp of fear, existential, not existential, you go through existential fear through awakening, but it's just the programmed body grasp at self, at existence, that could probably be needed to be addressed as well. So it kind of goes this way. So now with my experience in working with KI and what are these chakras, as you were saying, it's just energies, yeah, like just centers of expression in different ways that there is, that the energy kind of, how do I say, like the throat, let's say, like example, like just a living example of my experience with the throat. It was, I would get this intense with my repression of shame and repression of self altogether, repression of fear of being oneself, because at some point in my childhood, I became the shame, and the association with myself as being that shame could not be expressed or shown to the world at all in any shape or form. So for me, this all intensified here and in the throat. So obviously the throat chakra, we know it's a form of expression, and just working on that shame and releasing that energy, revisiting these memories and really incorporating them over and over again, and releasing shame through some of KI tools and eventually a little bit with repression tools at the end, allowed me to do this. Like I would wish this wouldn't happen every single Tuesday, even though I already moved through some shame. But there were still energies that didn't want me to show up and have no script or anything to talk about. You know, it would be like, oh my gosh, like I can't really be, like being me is not enough, period. And it's very shameful being me, because I'm not intelligent enough, not fluent enough, not this, not whatever, all the stories, da 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 da. So by working with KI and repression on that, what happens is just this opens up. And what happens is the ability to be oneself more fully and fluently and effortlessly becomes more of an embodied experience, everyday experience. So for sure, you're being whatever you're going through, and at the same time having these tools, I would say like trust your intuition and do both. Do some time inquiry and see what's there, what is in that stomach, and sometimes just move out of the way and just let it do whatever it does, because if the energy is already awake and alive and here, it probably would be doing its thing. Like I mean, in my case, I didn't know about this work, as I'm saying, and it did its thing, right, for 3 years. But I was trusting it. I was trusting it. I was supporting it, right, with other practices that were at my hand. But yeah, it's quite a journey. But then again, it's just coming back again to our intuition, our own trust, and making it alive, an alive experience. Talk to that energy. All energies can talk. Like for me, it was literally, yeah, for me it was literally, it became Kali. So for me, Kali was like clearing everything out of, you know, she's like, she has garlands of heads here, and every head is like an ego, a manifestation of desire. So she was like chopping everything out of my experience that was not true. That's how it felt really on the external level and internal as well. So, so I started to communicate with that, as I'm saying, dimension 1 and 2. Well, 2 is all prompting, right? It's all mining questions. But dimension 1 can also be questions. We can also live with a question. We can also communicate with that energy that is there. So if you feel that there's energy and there's movement, connect with it. Oh my gosh, by all means, it's like, it's amazing. It's actually fascinating to know that there's something extra, how do I say, kind of an esoteric thing happening to us, and we can be with it, right? So yeah, I don't know if that helps.
No, it does. I can relate to like almost everything that you said.
Yeah.
Like I'm having the same blockages and the same emotions and stuff attached to them. Yeah, I feel I just, because it's like so uncomfortable sometimes, I think there's like been an urgency to try and move it along.
Yeah.
But then it feels almost like I'm trying to direct it sometimes. I don't know. And it's probably not the best. KI can sometimes feel like if I'm not, there's a balance between like feeling like you're trying to manipulate energy, or, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes I'm probably trying to manipulate it. Yeah, but no, it was really helpful, because it's just sometimes you just feel like, you say, feel like you're going crazy, and there's not that many people that you can talk to in like normal life that understand it. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. There's great books. I mean, some books did scare me a lot, like of Gopi Krishna. He talks about his Kundalini awakening, but it went in the wrong passage, and he had a lot of pain with that. So, but at the same time, it kind of eventually it passed whatever it went through. All it is really is kind of what's happening, and we all in some way will encounter that, some to lesser degree, and it's not going to be as obvious. And for some who are kind of, for who the energetic body is quite close to the physical body, it's going to be really, really felt. Like in your case, Gary, in my case as well. It's just like, it felt like I was going through some physical catharsis, and there was like something crawling up my spine, and it was in my chest, and it was in my, so it was kind of intense. But for some people, it's not so much. And yet I know that to abide, be here and now, there's kind of an upgrade that happens energetically of such. And it's nothing, as I'm saying, don't let your mind to start create, oh, now I need to do like Kundalini yoga or get my Kundalini awakened. No, it's not. I'm not saying about that. It's just when we still continue and progressing on the path to be fully awake, be fully human, be fully present, there's going to be some energetic shifts. And with repression work, whoever had a really full, good repression session, you can feel that there is so much energy that you can unlock and have the potential to feel, that it almost sometimes, when I lead some sessions, they feel like almost exorcism. There's stuff moving. So we are in this work as well, activating and emptying. We're kind of doing what, this energy on its way up, in my case, did spontaneously, right? Just moving out of the way, trusting, letting it do its thing, observing, being present. But yet at the same time, this work is fascinating, because it kind of creates like this highway for everyone. Not just the one that sits and meditates or does Kundalini yoga and all of a sudden unlocks Kundalini. No, we're actually tapping into this ourselves. But then again, for you in your case, just do a little bit of both. Just trust yourself when you need to step out of the way and just watch it, let it do what it does. And then sometimes, okay, this feels right, and this feels like something to do, and just inquire or make it alive, or just accelerate it, whatever, body mind mirroring. What is it already saying? What is happening here? And another example, a little bit of that, is I'm working with a woman, been working with her for a while with KI, and she has her Kundalini definitely awakened, because she feels energies everywhere, and she just can tell exactly where they're going and what. And an example, or how do I say, a symptom, or not a symptom, an effect of an awakened Kundalini, because you might have an awakened Kundalini already, you just don't know it. It's just the fact that we are able to feel energies. It's just the fact that we can feel pranic body, like in the energy body. It could be just that it's not necessarily so in your face because it's not a, how would I say? Yeah, like just your blueprint is a little bit different than someone else's who experiences a lot of energies. So in some esoteric texts and yoga texts, it says that you can't even have spiritual experience if you didn't have your Kundalini awakening. It's just you don't have that the capacity to feel spacious or altered or energies is not there. So I'm saying like we're all here probably in the same boat already anyway. It's just some of us feel the energies more than others. So whatever it is that you do that can be helpful for this can be just useful, whether it's inquiry or whether it's yoga, or whether it's some breathing. Cool.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Elena.
Awesome, Gary. And how is it for you? Because I remember there's a lot like in your face that moved out of the.
Yeah. It kind of seems to like cycle through areas, and then like it go back around to the area, but it'll be less dense.
Yeah,
that's kind of like what seems to happen. So I think I'm done with an area like my chest, and then it'll go back to there a month or two later, and then it'll just be less dense and a bit more manageable, I guess. But yeah, it's like my stomach is the main thing. My jaw was really locked, and that's unlocked now.
Okay.
It feels a lot looser now.
Yeah.
Right. But it's really really taxing on my system. Like I've got all this eczema stuff is breaking like out of my face, and it seems to be, and like my sleep's not been good and stuff. So it seems to be related to like big releases and stuff. So it can be brutal. It has been quite brutal, but I'm learning, like you said, now I'm learning not to fight it so much, and and the barriers, like give it attention without trying to manipulate it so much, and give it like presence seems to be helping.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
again, a huge thing that was helpful is just the shifting from resisting it and trying it to go away to fully allowing it to be here and fully allowing its experience and whatever it does. So it's almost like I was just given space for it to be exactly what it is, kind of like in KI what we do. So and at the same time I was kind of fascinated, and it was interesting just to observe it as energy. So you're just kind of one point in and you can just watch it, because it can be quite fascinating, kind of like how would I say repression inquiries, like when we stay just with energy and nothing else takes you away of that. Like that could be also a mode of practice. It's just presence, and it's just staying with it, because now in this case, in your case, you don't need to even how would I say to rev it up. You don't need to, it's already there. So I mean, you could get curious and see if it carries a story and just ask a question or two, but it's just allowing it to do what it does. Sometimes it would do its job.
It's quite entertaining, like sometimes, because you can just sit for like hours,
It's a good portal into presence. That was like, you know what, it kept me, if anything, kept me in meditation is that, because sometimes meditations are nothing, you're just sitting and you're like, I wasted my time sitting here, but but that just kind of having some sort of an energy going on. So it was kind of a fascination with that, just sitting, allowing, being in the body, being present was a good way of building that muscle of awareness and being in the body as opposed to in our head. That's cool. And so another part with this woman who I'm working with, so her Kundalini is awakened, and it's really much in the stomach, and there's a lot of repression of shame there. And And it's amazing. So working with that, it releases a lot of it, but it's still there. It kind of still comes back, and there's still kind of an energy there. It doesn't go away completely. But then when we have a session, there's a huge release and a huge spaciousness that appears there. So I would say probably whatever we do with this work really also helps it, and probably also moves it, helps it to do its thing faster, so to say. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything else before we move and meditate?
So, Alina, basically removing, so to say, of these energies, it's not. Am I to hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's a process. It doesn't happen at once. It takes time, as you say. Yeah. I mean, this example of this woman, it takes place bit by bit.
Yeah, for
Is that
sure.
right?
Yeah, everything is a process, and everything is kind of our commitment to the process. To tell you the truth, like I can speak about effortlessness and freedom right now, but it took me some years, right? Meditating, allowing this energy to move and do what it did, whatever, for 3 years. Then 4 years seeking all stopped. The 4th year, like, okay, no seeking, but there was still no abiding. And yet, great knowing that, who and what I am, but not necessarily always being present. So, and then the right question came in, the right inquiry came in, the right meditation came in, and it's kind of slowly starting unpacking. I didn't even see all the repressed material yet. So then it's like the process of, okay, light is here, or, the willingness and the readiness to meet all trauma is here, like for you guys, probably a lot of you here are already super ready. So for me, being ready for that, poof, like trauma images and repressed images came up that I haven't seen for so many years. And that was kind of shocking. So it's like, it was a process, of course, now knowing the tools and now knowing all the ways we hide in safety. If I knew that back then and had all these tools, it would probably be way shorter. But what happened to me was more seeing the repression, pushing through, and starting sharing and expressing myself, and all of a sudden, poof, falling back into safety, which was, oh, okay, like this is not necessarily working out here in Montreal. Let's move to Mexico. Oh, in Mexico, I need to deal with other challenges. I have 2 small kids. I'll just be a mom. So kind of revert back into doing nothing for 2 years, which was kind of interesting. Because now knowing what we know about all the landing places, I was like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. So I can still come back and do some of the work. But in my case, it was, what really helped for us, and knowing that it is a process, that our commitment to truth or to freedom is what will get you over those bumps of safety that we need to come back to. And knowing and trusting that was what was really the key, because as soon as the right time came and the right mature, like readiness of like, okay, enough playing with nothing, let me start addressing what I wanted to. And anyway, COVID came and the training came, and it was all online and accessible. And I did the training and therefore plunged back into this work, which uncovered so much more. And the process of that took some time too. So for me to fully be rid of shame took another 2 years with using KI tools and coming back and putting myself out there in expressing myself. Eventually gave way to fully let go of that trauma. So it's a process, right? So we need to trust that it's not a one-day thing. And although I know some psychotherapists that actually are KI facilitators and soon to be repression facilitators. They say whatever they did in therapy for whatever 10 years with particular client, that client can have a breakthrough in 20 minutes with this work. But again, it's the breakthrough upon breakthrough upon breakthrough, and it's the kind of the accumulation of that eventually gives way to freedom. And yet again, it takes also the understanding that it's not just processing, but it's whatever we were afraid of doing, however we were afraid to show up, and it's mostly we are afraid to show up as ourselves in whatever shape or form, whether it's expression, whether it's just emotion, feeling it or expressing it, whether it's just being us, whatever that means creatively, perhaps. And so we're in one way or another, we're somehow repressing that. So the whole point of this work and coming back is just this process of coming back to fully being oneself. And it takes this brick by brick, whether it's KI, meditation, repression sessions, and it's building that resilience and that okayness and that fully letting go and fully surrendering of all the ways we needed to adapt, to hide, and to survive, basically. And there's just slowly releasing all that, releasing all the bottled, the repressed energy underneath that, right? Because it's not just, in my case, it's not just the deficiency story that I have to be perfect to do anything, because for my mom, I had to be perfect to be lovable. That was covering the expression, like the deficiency story, but it's loads of shame and hurt underneath that had to be released. So that expression can finally all of a sudden be, it's okay if I show up. Doesn't matter for me, doesn't hit anymore who thinks what of what I'll say. Because it's nowhere to land anymore, because it's just got freer. But
It's
before
nowhere to
there's
land.
to land, yeah, because before there's like a whole unconscious, like, you know, a storage of some kind, right? Where it hits, and it hits our identity, and it hits the hurt part that we don't even know that is there. And it constantly lands somewhere. But when there's nowhere for none of this to land, whatever opinions, validation or lack of validation or anything else, then that is freedom. That is freedom to be and do whatever we want. Not necessarily, I'm not saying like, you know, exaggerate anything, but it's very ordinary being what we are, actually. It's very ordinary, and we don't need a stage to be what we are. We just need to actually free up that energy and that freedom of spontaneity and effortlessness of being oneself and expressing oneself in whatever way.
So sweet, so comforting. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, so let's meditate a little bit. Wonderful. So, okay. Let's see what that would be about. Let me find my timer. So it's about 20 minutes, and I have some bells. So if you get kind of stirred up by a bell, a sudden bell, ride that energy. Fear is awesome to ride it. It kind of actually brings you more into presence. So just meaning, just feel it fully. If fear or just like this spontaneity or surprise is here. So where is my bell? Oops. Oh, here it is. So, and of course, like freedom of being oneself, it seems like there's two things to it, and one or two steps to it. And one, it seems like finding who and what we are truly as our true nature. Meaning is just what is aware of my words right now. It's not bigger than that. It's not less than that. It's just this right now, whatever is receiving. Because whatever is receiving, it's not the physical body. It's not the story of you. There's just alertness and aliveness that is palpable in your experience. But somehow we think it's separate from everything else. So it's just peeling off the layers of the onion to understand that there's nothing really here. There's either no self or the authentic self is one thing. So is knowing ourself as this isness, as the aliveness, as the presence. And it's the removing everything that was in the way of guarding that expression of the one isness of life itself, of existence itself, and its full uncontrived expression of you, because every expression will look different. So it seems for a moment that there's two things, like I don't know who I am, like in a greater scheme of the spirit, the essence, the source that we are. And on the other hand is, what am I as human? So this, what am I as human, fully human, which was pretty known, at least to a lot of us in childhood. To some, unfortunately, even childhood was quite contaminated. But for some of us, this was pretty much known. It was spontaneous, it was free, it was expressive. So this freedom of being oneself is actually one and the same thing, is knowing our true nature and letting that be fully embodied and expressed through the human experience. So let's take a few deep breaths just to land into the present moment. So closing your eyes, taking a full inhalation into the belly, expanding the chest, rising the shoulders, and fully letting go. And another one, just to give that regulation to our nervous system. Breathing in fully and completely, and letting go, and relaxing even deeper. So this type of meditation is really deeply relaxing. So if you need to find a more comfortable position to adjust yourself to be more comfortable, so your body can be fully still and you can fully let go and relax, you can go ahead and do that right now. So by relaxing our physical body, we're giving an invitation for our minds to relax. So the mind will never stop thinking on its own, meaning we're never able to force thoughts to stop. But what can happen is when we withdraw our attention, which is who and what we are, attention itself. So when we withdraw our attention from thinking and perhaps bring it back into the sense perceptions, sound, feeling, smelling, hearing, seeing whatever it is, even with eyes closed. There's the ability to be with what's arising as colors, shapes, forms. So any sense perception, perceiving the breath, the movement of the chest, and the direct sensations that it creates, could be a wonderful portal or anchor into the present moment. So coming back, how does the mind relax its thought? By actually itself relaxing. And it is known to you by going to sleep. You need to relax your mind to fall asleep. You need to relax your attention from thinking. So what we're going to do is just bring our attention to simply being curious of what happens if I just stay with not knowing what happens next. Meaning, I withdraw control, I relax control, or the illusion of control. I relax effort. I relax the need to know. I relax the need to arrive at a certain state. And I just fully surrender into what's here and now, which is the sound of my voice, the sensations of the body, any comfort or discomfort, the way you're sitting, and anything else that could be perceived this moment, sounds in the environment. So what does it really mean to surrender? How do I surrender to what is? So surrendering to what is simply not pushing away and not grasping onto anything. So it's just really being the passenger to your own experience. So whatever your experience is right now, just stay curious what the body feels like, what sounds are there. Just with that curiosity, what happens if I'm not going to try to know what's next? I can let that go. What happens when I fully surrender? That need to know or to be anything other than this. So if your mind becomes busy, you can just remind it, just stay curious and watch what happens if it doesn't grasp onto or push away anything. Whether it's sensations, sounds, words, emotions, feelings, any other energies, frustration with the mind being noisy. Can you include that too? Can you not push it that away as well? You just surrender to that being here as well. So the more I relax, the more the mind relaxes. The more space there is between thoughts or in the body. So if there is a story in your head, just see if you can just be aware of that. And don't touch it. Let it be here, let it pass, let it move. Say to it, no, thank you, not right now. And come back to the senses, the felt sensations of the body, sounds, the space. So what's really getting surrendered when we surrender, when we use that? What gets surrendered is our obsession with thought. And the ways that the mind can manipulate awareness. It's surrendering story making. And just letting the stories be simply the sound that happens. As if you're listening to a passing by car without fully being attached to that sound. It just passes through. The same thing with stories in our head. They're just all passing through. We don't feel them with the attention, which is the aliveness that we are. it will eventually relax. So surrendering can be viewed as a form of tenderness, an attitude of tenderness towards our inner experience. Whatever is arising, it's like an attitude of, okay, is that so? You're welcome here too. And the less aggressive we are with our experience, the more accessible becomes the ground of restful, peaceful presence that we already are. Nothing extraordinary. It's just a calm and a quietude, even underneath the noise. So just start noticing as well what else is here amidst the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations. What does it feel like simply being here? Without the need or the rush to do anything. Even though the need and the rush might be experienced as energies inside. So just want to notice what else is holding that. Does it feel like being you? Not the story of you, the real you. The existence you. Does it feel alive? Does it feel restless within the aliveness? Does it feel like a deep calm? How is it known to you that you exist? So just remember your anchor into the present moment, where it was senses or sound, or whether it was the breath and its movement. So we're going to remain silent for about 5 minutes or so. Just remain curious and surrender any resistance or any effort to what's arising. Sometimes you'll have to do it over and over until things calm down. Practice, and it's okay. just before you open your eyes, set the intention for this not to stay just on the cushion and with your eyes closed. Set the intention to really take it into your everyday life, meaning just being more present, being more aware, whatever is happening every moment, whether you're in communication or conversation with someone, whether you're doing something, be more there, whether it's eating, cooking, studying, creating, walking. Just try to take this, let it infiltrate throughout your everyday life. What does that really mean? Surrendering moment to moment. Discover for yourself. Live with the question. See what happens. We're just slowly going to come back into the body. And if it needs to stretch or move, if your leg feel numb, please move it. And at your own pace, at your own time, and taking your time, you can slowly open your eyes whenever you feel ready. So don't feel rushed. Why? You, everyone. See. Yeah, if anyone feel like sharing, I mean, if everyone is nice and calm and drifting, that's all good. But if anyone feels like sharing or anything, I have 5 more minutes or so. So quiet. Everyone's sleeping. Yeah, so anyway, explore. This is the beauty that is given to us, that everything that keep on coming back to, everything that is very beneficial, it's actually free, whether it's fasting. Thanks, Gary. Fasting, sitting, going to nature, eating good food, which probably depends where you are. Might be expensive. But yeah, just explore. This is wonderful that you're here. Whoever's new to KI, this is an amazing discovery, believe me. Will definitely can take you all the way to not just waking up, but really being embodied and being fully human. And it's in its full, that last bit that before we started meditating, that connection, right? Instead of thinking that there's 2 things here, I have to know who I am, and then I have to discover what's my purpose. That just gets, all of this gets out of the way when we actually do this work, because it becomes very obvious. Thanks, Yvonne. It becomes very, very obvious how the aliveness and the existence that we are can only be fully, freely expressed uniquely when we remove everything out of its way. And that's what's called embodied awakening or embodied enlightenment. And this is the beauty of this work, that it actually offers that in a practical way, not just talking about it. Lovely. Okay. Did you have your hand on raised before, or is it new?
I raised it again. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
First
Yes.
of all, I'm just going to take a breath.
Okay. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah. So what I'm exploring lately, which continue to with all of you, is staying embodied, which I do by kind of sinking an anchor into my sits bones, which I laugh about and say I'm putting my head in my ass. And then I do various practices that I really first learned all the way back in the early 80s as a young yoga student in Iyengar yoga, of breathing into my back body. So I'm now exploring and being with feeling my body pretty much mostly through just my feet and sits bones, sometimes through my legs. And my consciousness, my awareness is bigger. It extends beyond the physical boundary of myself, but at the same time, I still have an anchor. So when you said come back to your body, like I hadn't left my body, and I don't like to be floaty. I was very spaced out for decades. So I just want to share that it's what I'm practicing with, and writing about and discussing it with my Buddhist teacher, who has a different perspective than I do, self and no self. And my sense of the that our self-expression, whether it's through words, or I'm also a dancer and a poet, or there's a way that there's like a place that I'm connected to, like in absence of selfhood, we can all kind of have a somewhat similar experience of no self, but we do in fact have a self that exists in tandem with our non-self. And my sense of self now is sourced in and by non-self, and my self comes through in my creativity and in how I use language and how I'm able to articulate this.
Yeah.
That's my contribution.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's wonderful. You found something that really works for you. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing, Annie.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We all have our own experience, however we come to this, and however we name it, it's just names at the end. Self, no self. As long as, whatever it is that allows you to live freer and more expressive of whatever, more fulfilling at the end for you and others. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Lovely. I think we'll end here. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, so this happens. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, enjoy the whatever you're listening to. Yeah. Yeah, and this is every Tuesday, so I'll see you next Tuesday, whoever wants to join. Take care. Much love.
Thank you, Elena.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Lena. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Greg. Thank you, everyone.